on a warm summer's eve, on a train bound to nowhere, I met up with a gambler. We were both too tired to sleep. So we should
Steve Shannon and Leah Brandon, and we are enjoying having Attorney General Troy King in the studio with us. And I think we're going to talk a little bit about gambling, and you have a good explanation.
We went into the break talking about a disagreement with the governor that has been highly publicized between the Attorney General and Governor Riley about electronic bingo machines, whether they're slot machines or not, and should be illegal. And there's a distinction, law-based, according to the Attorney General. Share your view on it, Mr. Attorney General.
Well, there are people in our state who have said if it looks like a slot machine, then it must be a slot machine. You know, antifreeze looks like Gatorade, but I'm not going to drink it.
One will kill you, one won't.
That's right. The point is that what ought to be the law, or what we'd like to be the law, isn't what we get to enforce. We're bound to enforce the law as it's written, whether we like it or not. That's the oath I took as the Attorney General. Now, when we began looking at this, it'll be easy. If you look at Section 65 of our Constitution, it says that lotteries are illegal.
Okay.
If that was the end of it, the governor would be right, and we ought to shut down every bingo hall in the state. But that's not the end of it. The governor has said, why aren't we enforcing the law uniformly? Well, we don't enforce the law uniformly because it's not uniform. There's 18 local constitutional amendments across Alabama where cities or counties have amended the Constitution to change the law and allow some form of bingo to come.
That's what confuses everybody, I think.
Well, that is confusing. Who ever heard of a system where you can change the Constitution, not just the law? We're not talking about local laws anymore. We're talking about local constitutional amendments. But we've done that 18 times. So 18 plus Section 65, we've got 19 laws in the Constitution of Alabama. Now, the law has to be enforced the way that it's written. We just don't get to pick and choose. Now, there's a disagreement over even how we ought to go about doing that. I have said since I became Attorney General that the right way to do it is to go in and amend the Constitution, have a statewide vote once and for all, and settle this. You know, we trusted the people with Amendment 1. When people said that's the most important issue to ever face the state, we said, and let's hear what the people think.
Absolutely, that makes complete sense.
Well,
it
now,
really does.
Some would say that they did do that.
But they haven't done it. In fact, we've had votes since then. We've had 18 of them.
Right.
And they have created a patchwork of law. What I think we should do is to go to the people of Alabama and say, we've got 19 laws that are scattered and are a hodgepodge across the state.
Yes.
This is your state, this is your government, this is your law. Once and for all, let's have a vote and let's amend the law once and for all. Now, the other side of it would be to do what the governor has proposed, which is to go into court and look for a judge who will outlaw these things. Now, I'll admit, that's tempting. That's much easier than the legislature. I've been in the legislature year after year after year after year trying to stop the spread of illegal gambling, to stop the spread even of legalized gambling in our state. But I think back 40 years ago, you know, there were a group of people who said, you know, we don't have to have Bible readings in school. And we all said as conservatives, then go to the legislature and change the law. They tried, they failed, and so they went and they found a judge to do it. And then they wanted to take prayer out of schools and the Pledge of Allegiance out of schools and in God we trust off our money and legalize abortion and the whole litany of the left-wing agenda. Every time they proposed it, we said, we'll go change the law. They came back and said, we can't find elected representatives that will do that. We'll just go find a judge, thank you very much. Well, now we find ourselves in the same spot. We want to address the gambling issue. We can't get the legislature to do it. And so the temptation is, well, let's just go find a conservative judge somewhere. But activism is activism. And if it was bad when it took prayer out of schools, it's bad now. You know, my daddy used to tell me, you don't ever do right by doing wrong. And I believe that's what's being proposed, is that we go about doing this the wrong way. Now, if we put this on the ballot, I'm going to vote no. I have digressed greatly. You asked me a question, why aren't these slot machines? Well, when we did a gambling tour. As far as I know, I'm the only official who holds public office that's ever been to these places and actually looked at them.
I think you got in trouble for doing the gambling tour, didn't you?
I've gotten in trouble for everything I do, somebody wants to criticize.
Mr. Attorney General, I know some politicians that have done a gambling tour, but that's a whole different kind of deal.
When I didn't gamble on my gambling tour.
That is a distinction that needs to be made.
I observed on my gambling tour, but let me tell you how I became convinced that the law is as I believe it is. If you go into one of these places and you look at this screen, there's a card up in the top left-hand corner that's just a few inches big, and most of the screen looks like a slot machine or a roulette wheel or whatever the bells and whistles that they put on it are. You put your money in, the balls start falling, your card gets marked. In the meantime, you're paying attention to these wheels and these lights and all of these things. Now, I'm pleased that the governor's original position was there cannot be electronic gambling, period. Now, he has come to join me in my position that there can be electronic gambling. His expert, who's trained all of these agents, has said that the bells and the whistles and the graphics and all of the things that accompany the games don't change the game. What you have to look at is what is the machine actually doing. It's kind of like if you walked into a room and there was a dead body on the floor and you said, I think there's been a murder committed. It looks like there's been a murder in here. But you got to go do forensics and determine the cause of death. Well, it's no different if you're looking at a gambling machine. When you walk in, you may say, that looks like a slot machine, and I think they're breaking the law. But you got to analyze the computer components and figure out what is it really. Now, when you're looking...
It's just playing bingo.
Well, if it's playing bingo, then it's legal. So that's the question. Now,
my issue, or not issue, question, and I need clarification on it, is... If you put money in, if it then is a game of chance, no matter what it is, and there is a machine involved, I don't understand how that's different from a slot machine.
That's a great question. The reason it is different is because, by definition, under state law, the state law says that a slot machine is a gambling device. A gambling device, specifically the last sentence of the definition in the Code of Alabama says that machines that play lotteries are not gambling devices. So by definition, if it's playing bingo, it cannot be a slot machine.
Isn't that the bottom line then? That's what the law says. That is the main whole thrust of your argument, isn't it?
That is the whole thrust of the argument. But let me tell you how I became convinced that these machines are playing bingo, because that's the important question. It wasn't really one of the machines that looked like a slot machine that convinced me. It was a 5-card stud machine. And this is why it convinced me. We went in and there was this machine that played 5-card stud. You said, I'll take 3 cards, and you play. Well, in the meantime, the bingo card is playing. You're playing the 5-card stud game. The bingo card ends, and let's say it says you win 2 credits. You got 5 numbers in a row that are covered. And let's say that you got a flush on your hand, and it says you win 20 credits. All right, well, we're going to find out now what you're playing, right? Because they don't square. You're going to get paid for one or the other. Well, when the game is over, the 5 cards change to be a pattern of cards that pays the same thing as the bingo card. Well, if that's the case, you got to be playing bingo. You're not playing 5-card stud because the machine changes your hand of cards so that it is a hand of cards that pays what the bingo card says.
I see.
Not the other way around.
Okay.
If it had changed your bingo card to reflect what the hand of cards was, then you'd say, well,
I'm over here gambling.
Where does it stand now? Flash forward, Mr. Attorney General, where does it stand now? What is going to happen? I mean, Bob Riley's leaving office. You're going to win the re-election as Attorney General. We're going to have a new governor. Let's look into the crystal ball. And I just did, by the way. What's going to happen?
Apparently so.
Well, I hope that's a clear vision.
I've done some polling.
Oh, usually is.
Good. I think, Steve, that what's going to happen, we've got a number of these cases that have gone to the Supreme Court. One of 2 things is going to happen. We're either going to continue to have delays and the Supreme Court is going to ultimately rule one way or the other, or the legislature is going to step up. Every time they come in, we have proposed again, this is
finally going to be on the ballot. That would be a perfect solution.
Steve, I told somebody the other day, I said, the difference between the governor and I isn't even as fundamental as do you want to vote or not. We both want to vote. He just wants 9 people to vote who are on the Supreme Court. I want 4 million people to vote. I think everybody in the state ought to get to do.
Absolutely. Good perspective.